That was the bargain. The idea that like Obama was going to be the deporter in chief, which was ridiculous and unjustifiable, of course. But then simultaneously, he was going to do the Dreamer Act, right? For DACA, the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. For those of you who don't know, DACA is a program. Let's get to the U.S. Citizens' children being detained by the administration and also being deported alongside their migrant parents. Because that's what we're watching right now.
President Trump's deportations are drawing controversy once again. This time, 3 children, all U.S. citizens, have been forcibly removed from the U.S. with their migrant mothers and sent to Honduras. Lilia Luciano is here with more. Lilia, good morning.
Good morning to you, Adriana. These children, ages 2, 4, and 7, are U.S. citizens and were sent with their mothers who were deported Friday morning. According to the family's lawyers, the women were arrested during ICE routine check-ins and were given virtually no opportunity to speak with lawyers or their family members. In the case involving the 2-year-old, a Trump-appointed federal judge in Louisiana raised concerns that the Trump administration appears to have, quote, deported a U.S. citizen without any meaningful process, end quote. The president's border czar, Tom Homan, disputed that claim on Face the Nation Sunday.
That female had due process at great taxpayer expense and was ordered by an immigration judge after those hearings. So she had due process. Again, this is parenting 101. And you can decide to take that child with you, or you can decide to leave the child here with a relative or another spouse. Having a U.S. citizen child doesn't make you immune from our laws of the country.
We are not sure of the immigration status of the girl's father, but we do know he tried to have the child's legal custody temporarily transferred to his sister-in-law, who is a U.S. citizen. According to court documents filed by the child's custodian, ICE agents refused to honor a request to release the girl to the custodian, stating that it was not needed because she was, quote, already with her mother. Adding to this very layered situation, in the case of the 4-year-old, lawyers say the child has a rare form of cancer and was removed from this country without medication. Meanwhile, one of the women deported is pregnant. Anthony.
Lilia, thank you. Very complicated case, and typically these are adjudicated in a much longer process.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what's happening on the interior. On Friday, there were 3 American citizen children born here who were deported along with their mothers from Louisiana down to Honduras. And according to advocates, one of them is a 4-year-old child with stage 4 cancer, a rare...
Oh, straightforwardly a fucking demon, dude.
Rare form of metastatic cancer, who was sent back to Honduras without getting to talk to a doctor and without medication. I understand this child's mother entered this country illegally, but isn't there some basis for compassionate consideration here that should have allowed for more consultation or treatment?
Well, it certainly is discretion. I'm not aware of the specific case, but no U.S. citizen child was deported. Deported means you got to be deported by the immigration judge. We don't deport U.S. citizens.
The mother was deported along with the children.
The children aren't deported. The mother chose to take the children with her. Now, when you enter the country illegally, and you know you're here illegally, and you choose to have a U.S. citizen child, that's on you. That's not on this administration. If you choose to put your family in that position, that's on them. But having a U.S. citizen child after you enter this country illegally is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It doesn't make you immune from our laws. If that's the message we send to the entire world, women are going to keep putting themselves at risk to come to this country. You know, we send a message. You can enter the country legally, which is a crime. That's okay. You can have due process, great taxpayer expense, get ordered to move. That's okay. Don't leave. But have a U.S. citizen child and you're immune from removal, that's not the way it works.
So you don't think there should be compassionate consideration for a 4-year-old child undergoing treatment for cancer?
I didn't say that. I said
that was the question.
ICE officers do have discretion.
Yeah.
ICE officers do have discretion. I'm not familiar with the specific case. I don't know what facts surround this case. I've just made aware of this when you mentioned this morning. I was not aware of that case.
On Friday, a federal judge who was appointed by President Trump said a 2-year-old American citizen child had been sent to Honduras with the mother who was deported. But the judge said, quote, there was no meaningful process. So again, this is another similar situation and dynamic. Shouldn't there be special care when these deportation cases involve small American-born children?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the judge. There was due process. That female had due process at great taxpayer expense and was ordered by an immigration judge after those hearings. So she had due process. Again, this is parenting 101. You can decide to take that child with you, or you can decide to leave the child here with a relative or another spouse. Having a U.S. citizen child doesn't make you immune from our laws of the country. American families get separated every day by law enforcement. Thousands of times a day when a parent gets put in jail, the child can't go with them. These, if you're an illegal alien, come to this country, and you decide to have a U.S. citizen child, that's on you. You put yourself in that position.
Well, when...
Oh, my God. Isn't this guy supposed to be aware of these sorts of things? Like, I know he's lying, but isn't it also a bad look to say, oh, yeah, I had no idea my organization is doing this? It doesn't matter at this point. It doesn't fucking matter. That's my point. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Schumer on the Dem response to Trump's shakedown on Harvard. We sent him a very strong letter just the other day. A very strongly worded letter. You see, it's over. Chuck Schumer wrote a very strongly worded letter to Donald Trump. He is, any day now, Donald Trump, a man who we still don't know if he knows how to read or not, is going to read that and go, wow, thanks for the feedback. I am going to go extra hard now. This kind of pressure does not matter. You actually have to protest. You actually have to make a big fuss. You have to put your body on the line. Okay.
When it came to this particular case, you just pointed out that they could have made arrangements. The father tried, actually, to make arrangements, as we understand it through our reporting. But he and the mother, who were separated since she was in detention after showing up for her appointment, was only allowed a very brief phone call. The father tried to petition to get the child handed over to an American citizen relative. So the mother had to make this decision and took the child with her. It just seems like there could be some more time frame here around due process allowed. That's what the judge is saying there should have been more of a process here.
There was due process. The two-year-old baby was left with the mother because the mother signed the document requesting her two-year-old baby go with her. That's the parent's decision. I don't think the judge knows specifics of this case. Two-year-old went with the mom. The mom signed a paper saying, I want my two-year-old to go with me. That's a parent's decision. It's not a government decision. It's a parent's decision.
The father wrote a note. Anyhow, we have to leave it there. Director, thank you for your time today. We'll be right back.
Yeah, the argument is, we didn't deport these kids. We just made them choose between staying in the U.S. or their mothers. Obviously, it was totally up to them. And what Secretary Marco Rubio is defending here is obviously an indefensible thing. What the secretary is defending here is completely indefensible. Let's hear what he had to say.
On the headline, that's a misleading headline. Okay, 3 U.S. citizens, ages 4, 7, and 2, were not deported. Their mothers, who are legally in this country, were deported. The children went with their mothers. If those children are U.S. citizens, they can come back into the United States if there's their father or someone here who wants to assume them. But ultimately, who was deported was their mothers who were here illegally. The children just went with their mothers. But it wasn't like, you guys make it sound like ICE agents kicked down the door and grabbed the 2-year-old and threw him on an airplane.
No, that's precise, because that's what happened. No, that is literally what happened. Yeah, they did that alongside their mothers, who, again, have U.S. citizen children and U.S. citizen husbands, by the way. So they're in the process. Under normal circumstances, they should be getting U.S. citizenship. Okay? Just so you recognize the depravity here, we're talking about people who are either here on like tourism visas or whatever, or visa overstayers who have children with U.S. citizens. Their children are U.S. citizens. And Marco Rubio is saying, no, you don't understand. These people are illegals. And it's good that this happened.
That's misleading. Yeah. That's just not true.
Just to be clear, because I do want to get to the overhaul at the State Department, is it the U.S. policy to deport children, even U.S. citizens, with their families, and I hear what you're saying, without due process? Just to be very clear there.
Well, no. Again, if someone's in this country unlawfully, illegally, that person gets deported. If that person is with a 2-year-old child or has a 2-year-old child and says, I want to take my child with me, well, then what? Say, yes, of course you can take your child, whether they're a citizen or not, because it's your child. Or you can say, yes, you can go, but your child must stay behind. And then your headlines would read, U.S. holding hostage 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 7-year-old while mother deported. So the parents make that choice. I
feel like there's a third option here. Third option here is don't deport the mothers that are married to U.S. citizens and have U.S. citizen children. Give them citizenship instead. What an incredibly radical proposition, I know. What an insanely radical proposition. Shocking, I know. Nobody thought about this beforehand. Turns out there is this woke third option where you don't do any of this, because why are you doing this? Are these mothers rabid criminals? Are they fucking violent gang members? Remember when the Trump administration was lying in the beginning of this mass deportation scheme, claiming falsely that they were going after all of these rabid criminals? What happened to the gang narrative? What happened to the terrorism narrative? Remember, it was never about terrorism or gangs whatsoever. That designation came on as a justification because it is that vague, that intentionally vague designation is used in this circumstance specifically to create this incredibly violent, morally repugnant mass deportation scheme.
Imagine those 3 U.S. citizen children have fathers here in the United States. Yeah. They can stay with their father. That's up to their family to decide where the children go. Children go with their parents. Parents decide where their children go. Right. The U.S. deported their mothers who were illegally in America.
Awfully telling of the administration's motivation that they only recently just said that they want to have more American babies at the same time deporting a woman who gave birth to American babies. I wonder if this has anything to do with the skin color of said babies. Yeah. Who makes money in the deportation scheme? I mean, the facilitators do, but this isn't about, this is purely ideological for the most part. That's a big part of this, because white supremacy is purely ideological. There is not really that much of a materialist assessment. You can make one, but you have to also understand, and I do believe this, there is a decent number of Americans who are just genuinely fucking fascist, like not like irredeemably fascist, okay? There's a much larger number of Americans who abide by racist and fascist ideology, but that can be convinced to not do that. But there are definitely a decent chunk, I would say like 10% of the country in the most conservative estimates, that are just straightforwardly neo-Nazi style people that like genuinely believe in white supremacy and think that this is very good and that we have to do everything in our power to just deport every single person that's even like a touch browner than they are.
Trump's border czar Tom Homan facing reporters in the White House briefing room and also facing new questions after a week.
I would say 20 to 30% who just fundamentally believe in making others suffer to make themselves superior or feel happy. Yes, I'm saying that's the reason why I said 10%. Like, look, I'm making up these numbers, okay? I'm making these numbers up as I go along. But I'm saying, by my estimation, this is totally arbitrary. It could be completely wrong. There's like 10% that is straightforwardly saying the 14 words that are like committed almost completely ideologically to Nazi-style fascism. And then another 20% to 30% that also think that, you know, this kind of deportation scheme is actually harming more vulnerable populations that then automatically elevates their status. And you are reaching again. What a shock. Really? You think it's a larger percentage that is like ideologically committed to neo-Nazi agendas? Is that what you're saying? Like, what's this fucking argument? Oh, FD Signifier is here. This is a great conversation for him and I to have as well. Doors open. Hold on.
Weekend of ICE actions, including deporting a mother with young children. The children are U.S. citizens. Let me play what Tom Homan said just moments ago.
Caroline, if border crossings are at a record low, why should it still be considered an emergency?
It's because of what has happened on the last administration. We got to ensure that not 1 ounce of fentanyl comes across the border to kill Americans. The president has declared the cartels in Mexico with terrorist organizations, along with MS-13 TDA. They killed more Americans in the world combined. It's an emergency till we shut it down. It's an emergency till the cartels are wiped off the face of this earth. President Trump's committed to saving every life. Now, I just mentioned gotaways 38 yesterday. Who are the gotaways? Where do they come from? We had over 2 million gotaways under Joe Biden's administration. Why did 2 million people pay more to get away? Under the Biden administration, you pay a cartel this amount of money to cross the border. Cartel's job ends at the border. Just turn yourself in a green uniform. Get released in 24 hours. Get a free airline ticket to the city of your choice. Get a free hotel room. Get 3 meals a day. Get free medical care.
God damn it, the gray boxes are back.
120 days, which is the real reason they came here. Why did 2 million people pay more to get away?
Oh yeah, I'm live already.
Because they didn't want to be vetted. They didn't want to pay.
Civil rights groups say last week's deportations included 3 American children, all U.S. citizens.
Oh,
One
yeah,
of them is battling cancer.
Here for sure.
Let's go to CNN's Priscilla
Alvarez. Piece of
Alvarez.
slob on your face.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Here, I'll grab that.
And I don't like dogs, but you're really good.
She's a big slobberer for sure.
Yeah.
First thing FD asked is is your dog friendly to black people? How many black people has your dog been around?
Because I listen.
No. I tell people all the time they get like dogs. I tell them to white people to train their dogs to as a puppy to be around like black and brown people in general. Yeah. It's not even a joke. Like
it's a real thing.
Yeah.
I now live around way more white people than I have my entire life. And I do not hate white people, but I realize I do hate their dogs. And like if it was my dictatorship that we were setting up in America right now, I would make every white person with a dog register on a list. And go through state mandated training before they're able to. She's like, no, keep going. Keep going.
No, she's been around. She's been around plenty of black people.
Yeah, because the types of things I have seen with white people and their dogs in the last year has blown my mind. I did not know it was that bad. So. All right, Kai, I got to let you go though. I got to pay attention to this.
Okay.
To the speed of this chat.
Yeah.
Whatever else is going on. I heard we talking news today.
Yeah.
There's a blackout in Europe or something?
Yeah, there's currently a blackout happening in Spain and Portugal. They're saying it's like
the whole country?
Like there's I think they've like recovered a little bit, but I'm not entirely certain as to where like how it happened, but I think it's because of let's see.
How do we blame this on immigration?
Yeah, massive power outages hit Spain, Portugal, and France, slowing travel and affecting commuting travel. Airports have been disabled. Shops and offices are in the dark. It's unclear how many people have been affected. Parts of France were also briefly hit. The Spanish government is holding an emergency meeting in Madrid. Lights coming back on in central Lisbon. Coco Gauff shares her blackout experience in a dark locker room after the Madrid Open match. Spain declared a state of emergency. What was it? What was the reason?
Yeah, like what happened? It says like, I know countries in Europe are
was it a smaller states or whatever, but
like to take out the entirety of a grid is not just a simple malfunction.
At first I thought it was because of like a space storm or something. Like sometimes stuff like that happens where it works like a
solar
EMP
flare or some shit.
Yeah. That's what I thought it was, but I don't know. Neoliberals tried privatizing the energy sector and it fucked it up. I mean, I don't know.
Aren't we all running on neoliberal? Standard is the neoliberals can run a power grid enough to not have an entire country.
Texas.
Unless it's Texas. But that's not the they don't have that good old neoliberal effective bureaucracy. They just are running on diet fascism.
Kaya, place.
Oh, that is not how shit happens in front of my house in my neighborhood.
No, she's very well trained. She's awesome.
But I remember you were training like when I was here. I guess was that 2 years ago now. About
Yeah,
maybe
I think
last
so.
summer.
Yeah, like when she was a little baby.
Last summer, yeah. Yeah, that's wild shit. Yeah, I'm back in the giant Hassan mansion.
Yeah, yeah, you're back. You're back in the bunker.
This house is bigger since the last time I was here. The socialist mansion.
Yeah, it grew larger, and it's also more expensive now because every time my haters grow by numbers, the house value goes up. Now they say I have a $10 million
home.
Now I have a $10 million castle. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about. I did buy a home not long after I left you.
Oh no.
But I'm not. I will be off social media about my house, and also I put kids in this. People give me a pass. Just have kids. Once you have kids,
no, they will not give me a pass. They'll be like, they'll say socialist, but had a child in a capitalist world and is like damaging the environment.
Gosh, I will say,
because I put my family in this house. Like my family comes and stays with me for months on end. You know what I mean? They don't give a shit about that.
Right. Yeah.
It's like I take care of my family, and they still. There's like AI articles written about how my dad is a billionaire. They say that my dad is a billionaire, and that
he used to hang with Elon Musk's dad.
Yeah. He's one of the richest people in Turkey. They say.
Yeah. Wild business. Yeah. The hate for you. Like I knew there was hate for you when I was here last time. I've known that for a while.
Yeah.
It definitely has increased, and it's gotten. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing great.
You're having a moment. You're having a moment.
Yeah. It doesn't really go anywhere. It's because especially because it's always the same shit.
Yeah.
And it's always like incredibly frivolous.
Yeah. Yeah. My thing is always when I care enough, is to ask for details. Yeah. And that's what I've been telling, because now that I'm getting just the fact that I'm positively associated with you, but also once you hit as much notoriety as I've finally gotten to now, you just kind of become an economy of your own, like to have your own haters, to have your own anti-fans.
Yeah, of course.
So what I've been telling people is just listen, when they say something really bad about me, just ask for details. Just tell them to explain. 7 times out of 10, they can't. And those 3 out of 10 times, it's the pettiest, most online brain thing possible. Yeah. And it doesn't really go anywhere.
Wait, let me fix this as well. And then we can do this. Here we go.
I clearly need a better camera. This is like.
But these cameras are annoying though. They're Lumix. I wouldn't recommend them. I recommend like the Sony FX. I think it's like FX7 if you're gonna use it. These are studio cameras. They need like they need
all the things.
They need a lot.
This is a much more serious. Even the stand is way more like my shit. I got an a Brio like webcam that's just dangling on top of one of my monitors. I don't even have that shit mounted properly. But I am streaming chat. I am now a Twitch. I'm officially a Twitch not affiliate.
Partner.
Partner.
Or is it above affiliate?
I don't know. Whichever one.
Do you have a check?
No, I don't have a check. So I'm
so you're affiliate.
Okay, I'm affiliate. Well, I'm getting paid. Yeah. I've made $200 off Twitch in the last.
Yeah, you can get paid as an affiliate. Yeah.
So check me out. I'll save all my shout outs for later in the chat.
Yeah.
But
have you watched Sinners yet?
Oh yeah, of course.
Then we gotta talk about that as well.
Yeah. I'm Sinners.
So good.
Sinners was amazing. I'm in the middle of fighting people about Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if that's ready for your chat. I don't know.
No, we could talk about that too for sure. We can talk about Bill Belichick too if you want
to. That's a perfect segue, because Bill Belichick. The people call me anti-white. No one's more anti-white than Bill Belichick.
Really?
Yes. And people would think it's the opposite.
Yeah, because of Tom Brady.
Because of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I researched this recently because he had his own rant section in this Shedeur Sanders video that should come out tomorrow, and I cut it because I was like, I'm getting off topic. This is a whole other video now. He's had more white receivers than like the entire league combined. As like his one tenure of coach. Now it was 20 years, but like no team has had that. He had, I think it was 9 different wide receivers in a 15, 20-year well,
coaching career at New England. So he's doing DEI, you're saying?
Well, it's even worse than like it is how they describe DEI, but it's worse in that he's doing it on purpose specifically so he can control and underpay his employees. That's the really insidious part. Yeah, you didn't think about that shit, did you? Like Belichick, because the reason why I brought him up during the Shedeur shit is that the NFL has never really like embraced the fact that it has these rich black millionaires that come into their league wearing all the jewelry, being flashy, the way ironically Deion Sanders like showed the league you build a black star. So they've never really been a fan of that, but they've tolerated it because like these are stars, they're popular, whatever. No, never that. So if you go and you look at Bill Belichick's like NFL record as a coach, it's not his winning record, but the type of players that have played for him, he's never had a superstar outside of Tom Brady. He's only had contributors. And then the type when he does get a high level player, it's usually after that player has gotten in trouble somewhere else. So when you look at some of the players, the best players that Bill Belichick has ever had, Antonio Brown for a week, Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco for like a year or two, Terrell Owens for like a year, Albert Hainsworth, Corey Dillon, Dante Stallworth, like the list goes on that he hardly ever would pay you. If you had an attitude coming into the league, Bill didn't have nothing to do with you. You take that attitude somewhere else.
They're saying Randy Moss.
Randy Moss, thank you. That's another one. I knew I was forgetting one. Randy Moss is another one. So just like Randy Moss, right, comes in the league, is great, but keeps getting in trouble, keeps having run-ins with the law or wherever. I think Randy Moss only had one run in the law, but he's very much a pariah. And then after being a pariah for multiple years, he goes to New England. He keeps his mouth shut because he knows if he doesn't do his thing at New England, keep his mouth shut, he's probably out the league. Resurrects his career, I think Randy actually never got a Super Bowl, ironically, with Tom Brady. He's the best receiver to ever play with Brady. I don't think he ever got a Super Bowl. Hernandez, right? Hernandez is another one. Hernandez is the only person that he took on with alleged character issues, or maybe he didn't know Hernandez was a secret murderer.
Well, I mean, not to that degree, probably.
Yeah, probably not to that degree.
I don't think anybody knew that it was like that.
But the flip side, right, is so we have all these black guys with character issues that are elite talents. They can't be on the team outright. They have to come after they've been through the ringer.
Mm-hmm.
But he loves going and grabbing Gunnar Zolewski off of in the 7th round of a draft and seeing if he can turn little Gunnar Zolewski into his next Julian Edelman or Wes Welker or Chris Hogan, or I think I had a list, but I erased that shit. But it's like somebody in the chat, go ahead to Pro Football Reference and get that Amendola. I think Eric Decker played for him for a second. There's a ton of different white receivers, and they're all the same guy. Except for maybe Eric Decker, they're all 5'9", undersized, marginally athletic, but really hungry, scrappy white guys. He plays smart. He plays the game right way. Sneaky athletic. All that shit.
Lunch pail.
Brings his lunch pail every day. None of them ever got paid by him. They never got. He would have them there because he could control them. They wouldn't say shit. And he could give them middling contracts like he did everybody. He didn't even pay Tom Brady. I don't know what they were doing with their fucking salary cap that whole time. Yeah, so Bill Belichick hates white people. That is the take here you find on the Hasanabi.
Okay, this is good to know. I mean, yeah, underpaying Tom Brady is a perfect demonstration of hating white people and not giving white people the appropriate.
What they deserve. DEI ruined Tom Brady's his marriage.
Yeah.
DEI ruined Tom Brady's marriage.
All right. So we're not going to be talking about sports any longer, chat. So stop freaking out.
Your chat is like my viewers. It's like
they're like, dude, stop talking about sports. Get back to the fucking Trump administration. What we were covering earlier today was the Trump administration deporting U.S. citizen children 2, 4, and 7 years old alongside their parents. These are not like the violent criminal gang members that the Trump administration
murderers, of course. Right.
claimed that they were deporting on this like mass deportation scheme. And instead, lo and behold, they're deporting random people. Some of them have... many of them, majority of them, overwhelming majority of them don't have any criminal background whatsoever. Shocking. And the Trump administration is actively working to deport these people. And now, alongside their parents, they're deporting their children that are American citizens as well. These people are also married to U.S. citizens, too, on top of that. That's what's going on. Judge says 2-year-old U.S. citizen appears to have been deported with no meaningful process. The girl was deported Friday with her mother to Honduras, despite her father's efforts to keep her in the United States.
That's wild.
So it is shockingly cruel and completely unjustifiable. It's cruelty for the sake of cruelty. And here we are, you know.
She's joining us from the White House right now. Priscilla, you were at that briefing. What did Tom Homan say this morning?
Well, Wolf, the White House is certainly highlighting the progress
Can I just point out
that
Priscilla
they
is
have.
serving cunt though? Like she go back like 3 seconds and look at this serve she's giving the camera. What?
I think you're wrong. I think Wolf is serving cunt as
Is
well.
Wolf serving more cunt? No, that's
Wolf is always serving cunt. I have to recognize that. Apparently, apparently he knows who I am. So that's
okay. Well, shout out to Wolf.
Shout out Wolfman.
Wolf, the White House is certainly highlighting the progress that they have made and say they have made along the U.S.-Mexico border, where the numbers have plummeted over recent months. But of course, as you just mentioned, all of this is happening against the backdrop of what we are learning about 3 U.S. citizen children who were sent back to Honduras with their mothers. Now, these are 2 separate cases. This is in both cases, according to court filings, these mothers had been going to routine ICE check-ins when they were detained and then later removed to Honduras. Now, when that occurred, when they were detained, they were given the option to be removed with their children, and they opted for that. But the attorneys in these cases say that there was very little time to make any decisions or have conversations with relatives. And so they are raising the alarm again about the lack of due process. Now, when I asked the White House border czar about this, he said again that this was the decision of the mothers. Take a listen.
This is a decision of the mother.
If you choose to have a U.S. citizen child, knowing you're in this country legally, you put yourself in that position. You put your family in that position. What we did is remove children with their mothers who requested the children depart with them. This was a parental decision. Parenting 101. The mothers made that choice.
Is this
now? If you recall,
because I have, you have your enemies, I have my enemies. My enemies, thankfully, are less unhinged. But so I've been on this balancing act trying to engage with Black liberals around stop being Black liberals.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, he worked for Obama, didn't he? The border czar that they just showed.
Tom Homan? Yeah. He did. Obama. He worked at ICE under Obama.
Pretty much the same exact role, or not? Maybe not the head role. In the same capacity.
Yes, but also, so the thing is, Barack Obama did this thing where they restructured what they considered deportations to mean something different than what it previously did. So there's like 2 different types of, I guess, deportations, right? There's the catching someone in the process of like entering the border and then quickly sending them back, versus interior deportations, interior removal versus removal at point of entry.
Right.
The Obama administration changed what deportations used to mean to everyone being stopped and returned at point of entry, which is why his numbers grew dramatically. Part of the reason why he did this was to capitulate to right-wing framing on this, to make the claim that like, no, we're taking this very seriously. Right?
We're taking deportation across the aisle.
We're doing expedited removal. We're doing we're catching people crossing the border and then subsequently removing them. And so the deportation numbers exploded. Another part of the problem, I guess, is that there are more people trying to enter the country under Democratic leadership because I think undocumented migrants perhaps naively think that Democrats
are
less
their friends.
Democrats are kinder and more humane than Republicans, not realizing that they're not. Right.
The kids were in cages at that time as well.
Yeah, exactly. So the major difference in Trump 1 versus Obama was that Trump decreased the limitations that ICE had for engaging in interior removal, because the understanding broadly for Americans was relatively sympathetic to migrants in general. We are surrounded by undocumented migrants, some of which we know are undocumented, some of which we don't know are undocumented. It's just a normal part of living in the United States of America. There's like more than 10 million. According to Trump's estimations, 20 million undocumented migrants is a big chunk of the U.S. population. And therefore, the idea is that, like, if you've been living here and you obviously haven't done like an egregious crime, because you've been living here for a decade plus, like that it is whatever. Like
Right.
it is what
Figure
it
that shit
is.
out.
And that Americans actually, ironically, overwhelmingly choose mass amnesty for people like that over deportation when given the option. The problem is the Democrats have never actually shown that option or never communicated that option,
Right.
and they certainly haven't done so since they certainly didn't do so in the Joe Biden administration,
Right.
where they basically
it
took
became not the best political football. It
Yeah.
became very clear, like under Obama, because you would have been pretty young
Yeah.
at that time. But like I remember vividly, like immigration was not something I thought about until Obama. Now I was in my mid 20s, so I'm not as politically inclined then as I was now. But I'm pretty confident that like the way we think about immigration, the way that's a political football now, that starts under Obama, because that becomes a place to point to. Every couple of years, the right needs to kind of recycle their boogeymen.
Yeah. It was always around, like post Reagan, I would say. It was
Yeah.
definitely like a point of contention that the Republicans could constantly hit the button on.
Right.
But it was a known one, and it grew in severity, I think, under the Bush administration, and then certainly grew under the Obama administration, because it was like a great way to attack Barack Obama, to be like, oh, he is doing an apology tour globally, and he wants America to be run over by Mexicans.
Yeah.
It's just like pure white nativist nonsense.
Yeah.
Obama, on the other hand, was still pretty horrible when it came to immigration as well. But he did something that the Democrats used to do back in the day before Biden. And that is a back and forth. Like Obama used to do the I'll give you some concessions on immigration, but then I'll get something in return.
Mm-hmm.
That was the bargain. The idea that like Obama was going to be the deporter in chief, which was ridiculous and unjustifiable, of course. But then simultaneously he was going to do the Dreamer Act, right? For DACA, the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. For those of you who don't know, DACA is a program that was implemented by executive order under the Obama administration to offer some protections with very, very severe restrictions and very severe qualifiers to children that had crossed the border alongside their parents and had grown up in the United States of America. They would get deferred action, as in they would get protection from deportation, basically, as long as they went to school, got a job, did not leave the country. Like there are so many restrictions on DACA immigrants. It's actually pretty crazy. So, yeah. Clinton built a wall, Bush created ICE, Obama expanded deportations, but the DACA, Trump is creating a third Reich based on immigrant persecution. That's a pretty solid assessment of the situation. Yeah. So, in any case, this is something that I was very critical of the Biden administration on, because I know that they were going to fucking use immigration as a talking point over and over and over again. And Biden had actually come into office on a wave of pro-immigration activism, because people forget that the attitude towards, and the mistreatment of undocumented migrants under the Trump administration was so gross and so severe that you had Democrats talking about abolishing ICE.
Right.
Now, a lot of that was purely resistance, liberalism, and aesthetics, but
yard flags.
But the overall public sentiment had shifted back in favor of undocumented migrants. But Biden very quickly Biden basically didn't do anything about that. And then you have the famous Haitian migrants in Texas getting whipped by Customs and Border Patrol on horseback.
Yeah.
And in the aftermath of that, the Biden administration basically took a very reactionary stance towards migrants in general. And that only calcified this position. And on October 6th, ironically enough, right before October 7th, the Biden administration did something that I consider to be unconscionable, where they adopted the right-wing framing entirely, where the Biden camp came out with their own anti-immigration package, their bill that was written by an Oklahoma senator who was super reactionary, super far right.
And they still couldn't get that through Congress, though.
And they still couldn't get that through Congress because the Trump administration, or not the Trump administration, the
just Trump
campaign,
at the time. It was like,
Trump
nope.
at the time said, don't do this, don't pass this. And that, however, was a major blow to Democrats in general, because that basically was an admission that the Democrats were lying about saying that the border wall is racist, or lying saying that like immigrants, this is a nation built by immigrants for the past, 40 fucking years. What the Democrats had sick on, and they adopted the right-wing framing that immigrants actually constituted a national security threat. That was new, because Democrats had not previously agreed to this false notion that immigrants actually constitute a national security threat. But now that they were putting forward a national security focused bill to deal with immigrants and immigrant detention, all of a sudden they were admitting the Republican framing, normalizing this attitude amongst their constituents. The only impact that this had was they didn't win a single Republican vote on this, because they were like, oh, these guys are finally competent about immigration. The only impact it had was there were a whole bunch of liberals who get their notes from the Democratic Party who now also believed that immigrants were constituting a national security threat.
Yeah.
That's why Trump came into office with 66% approval on mass deportation.
That's a quick question on that, because hasn't that finally started to drop?
Yes.
I did a follow-up video a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago now, on like my initial Trump take. But that video was like 2 weeks after, I don't know, you haven't done, are you coming out with any 90-minute long video essays anytime soon?
No.
Okay, well.
No.
In the prestige land of the video essayists.
Yeah.
You write the essay, the editing can take 1 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So by the time, and so when I was writing, he had just had like the first, not the first, one of the earliest like popularity polls or whatever. And he was more popular than he's ever been as a president. And part of that was because at the time it was like 60% of people approved his immigration stuff. But it seems like that's finally dropped.
But to be fair to you as well, I had a conversation with Ested Herndon of the New York Times, who I love. I have him on all the time. He's one of my favorite New York Times reporters. And in our conversation, he did a follow-up initially to the original run-up thing that he had done, where he asked like his family members and a whole bunch of people that he'd met on the campaign trail, like what they now thought about Donald Trump. And a lot of people, and this was only like a month or two ago.
Right.
And that attitude has shifted dramatically even since then with the Kilmar Abrego Garcia story.
Right.
Basically, what he had told me at the time was a lot of Americans are still oblivious to the deportation stuff. They don't really consider it to be a major issue. They mostly were at that time focusing on Elon Musk and Doge and the unpopularity of mass layoffs coming from Doge. My argument always has been, both under the Biden administration, going all the way back to February 2021, when the CBP Haitian migrant whipping imagery came out, was that if the Democrats don't offer a counter narrative to the lies and the smears that these Republicans are consistently presenting, and right-wing sentiment dominates the media about migration, immigration specifically constituting a national security threat, then Americans are going to become more reactionary. They're going to care less about immigrants.
Yeah.
If the Democrats, once Trump was elected, I kept saying Democrats have to launch an opposition against this deportation agenda at some point, because you need to make Americans aware that this is happening. there's far too many things that the Trump administration is doing, but this is one of the most significant, most consequential
and
aspects.
It's also an easy one to display.
Yeah, and it's also it's super easy to vilify the horrifying practice.
I've seen enough social media posts of watching like ununiformed ICE people walking up to like women and children and essentially threatening them in like the most coming out of courts. You know what I'm saying? Going into
not even ICE
elementary
agents.
school.
We found out that ICE doesn't have the logistics to do mass deportation at this scale, which is why they've deputized like random right-wing militias and shit now too.
I did not know that one.
Is truly, truly terrifying. So, and lo and behold, the reports started coming in. Shouts out to ProPublica and all of these other institutions that were investigating the background, the criminal background of all of these immigrants that were being deported to CCOT. And we found out stories of the likes of Andre, for example, from California, the Venezuelan from California, who's a gay hairdresser who had a tattoo of mom and dad on his arms. And he was deported to CCOT with no due process whatsoever, simply because he had these tattoos. And the DHS was saying these tattoos are enough to say that he is Tren de Aragua. Right, which Trump had declared a terror organization at this point. Like the gang designation had moved on to the terrorism designation. Same with MS-13.
Right,
and you know, on top of that, there was a ProPublica report that showed that 75% had no criminal background whatsoever, and up to 90% had like traffic tickets or
possession.
Just like really offenses. Silly nonviolent offenses that don't reach the standard of deportation. And then the administration fucked up and had one of their federal judges or one of their federal attorneys admit that Kilmar Abrego Garcia had a withholding of removal to El, but the administration had already deported them. So they recognized that they had made a mistake.
What is the status of that, by the way? Because I've checked, I'm traveling and checked out of that.
I'm not certain as to what is going to happen, but there is a court proceeding taking place right now in terms of
because I know there's an
order from a Maryland judge, and I think that that's going to possibly escalate once again because the Supreme Court gave a unanimous 9-0 decision saying that the Trump administration must facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And yet they have not done so, and they're using facilitate, like the language around facilitate, to mean something it doesn't mean. They're saying it's not effectuate, it's facilitate, and therefore
we don't have
to do anything, right? So, and the Trump administration is like lying about it too. They're lying about the assessment. They're saying that it was a unanimous decision defending us when it clearly wasn't.
Peep Dark Soul real quick, 503 all the way at the top. It's going. Dark Soul says 2025. Come back down, right there.
Oh,
20. Oh, you ready?
Oh yeah, 2025. The Klan is still not designated as a terrorist organization. Yeah, of course not.
Right, and because I bring that up because as like. A couple of years ago, this might have happened under Trump. This might have happened under Biden. But do you remember the black extremist, the black identity extremist?
Oh yeah. I remember the FBI designation for black identity extremism.
Yeah,
like black
all
Israelites
7 of them. Yeah, the Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah.
They're being really mean on the street corner. And so like I think about the MS-13 and all these different gangs as terrorist organizations. There's so many. Like gang culture, that's really insidious is what I'm getting at. Because you realize gang cultures has been also intrinsically connected to revolutionary action, like worldwide historically.
Yeah.
It's gangs that usually where things start. The Black Panthers notoriously united gangs in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, it's just dangerous and scary. I don't have any like deep analysis on that, but like that's not an accident is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they're saying, we now have the wherewithal, like what's next? Is it fraternity tattoos? Is it Che Guevara tattoo? That's Antifa. Antifa's a gang. So now we get to deport you. Yes, that's wild shit.
Yeah,
wild
that is precisely what they're going to move towards. And this dovetails into another conversation that I've been having quite a bit, which is that the Trump administration is very smart and very insidious in the way that they're tackling some of these issues, because they're getting their notes from the likes of the American Enterprise Institute and the Heritage Foundation.
People that have been studying and waiting for this opportunity for literal generation.
Like the unitary executive theory is not one that like the Trump administration came up with. They just simply adopted it in the Republican Party, and all of the think tanks associated with the Republicans and the conservative movement in America recognize Trump as a perfect vehicle to commit to this agenda. It's been implemented for the past 30, 40 years at this point. Same with the Federalist Society. This isn't Trump simply is the guy that is
he's their chosen one.
Pushing all of this to its logical conclusion. And that's why I say it's insidious. They are eroding the First Amendment first by tackling the issue from non-citizens, from the perspective of people on student visas or even green card holders, as a matter of fact, legal permanent residents that are lawfully inside of the United States, by tackling the issue from the perspective of anti-Semitism, which has a lot of institutional clout and a lot of institutional power due to a lot of these Jewish affinity organizations that are simply there to defend Israel, but like can masquerade as
as anti-racist,
as anti-racist civil rights organizations, similar to the ADL.
Right.
So those institutions, those NGOs, and these organizations, and they get a lot of play within mainstream media. They have a lot of they still have a lot of institutional muscle, and the Trump administration is using that institutional muscle they have to basically collaborate with some of the most radical groups, all the way to like Beitar, which is a fucking 501c3, but it's actually liberating inside of U.S. boundaries, and getting their notes from them to open the door to eroding the First Amendment.
Right.
And once they have set a precedent, a dangerous precedent, then they can utilize it against documented U.S. citizens as well. And not even documented U.S. citizens, but like just American natural-born U.S. citizens as well.
Yeah,
it's a very sinister. It's a very sinister way of like undermining one of the most powerful, one of the most popular constitutional protections that Americans have, citizen and non-citizen alike.
Yeah, I've definitely been looking at Zillow in Canada.
Yeah, you're gonna move
in case I have to split. And I thought about that for you because you're not natural-born. Like,
no, I am.
Oh, I thought you.
Yeah, I'm an anchor baby.
Oh, well, I mean, it's not that matters, to be honest with you. You have any tattoos?
No.
Okay, well,
I don't have any tattoos. I'm pretty
what
white.
What about that beard?
I can shave it and change my name to Hank.
Hank Abby.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I always say, like, I'm at the end of that list. Like, by the time it gets to me, half of my chat will be, deported.
Yeah.
Given my financial status, and given my status as a public personality, I'm not saying that like it will never get to that point. I can't make that prediction any longer because this administration is crazy. But like all of those combined make me they put me in the back of the list.
Yeah.
If I was who I am as a student activist, then I would be closer to on the possible CCOT list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, similarly, I've had that kind of like, because when Trump got reelected, going into the election, me and my wife talked a lot about, all right, so what do if he wins, and then afterward, what do? And it's a constant conversation, especially with every, like, I think people said, oh, this is gonna be bad. I don't know who knew it would be this bad this quickly. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's already releasing Trump 2028 hats.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like they're soft launching, a complete rearrangement of everything that America has stood for within the first 100 days. So it's no telling how bad it will get. I'm probably a little bit further in from you economically, but I'm still Black and I have a very particular history that's attached to my time here, my family, etc. Not like my family, like my mother and father, people that are behind me, and then I'm thinking about my own children. And I think about the fact that I have the resources Canada's expensive as shit. I didn't know this until I started Googling. But I have the resources to get the fuck out of here at this point in my life. But like the reality of the situation is that by the time it's time to get the fuck out of here for the average person, it's gonna look like The Handmaid's Tale. You know what I'm saying? Or worse.
I'm also too stubborn. That's the other thing. Like I'm not, I'm very
sick.
stubborn. I'm not leaving, you know, I'm not going anywhere.
Like if I were you, I would have reduced down to 1 4-hour stream a week, like 3 years ago.
No.
I told you that last time I was like, hey, you should stream less. You should take more naps, do some yoga, and stream less. But you have cranked it up. But also to crank up, you know, on a lighter note, since you know the irony of Trump being back in office is that like immediate aftermath of the Democrats being like, oh, we need a leftist